Hi, my name is Lello and welcome to our channel. Over the next couple of years, we'll share our sailing experiences around the Cape of Good Hope and on the high seas as we prepare for the Ocean Globe Race, a retro round-the-world race that will depart Europe in September 2023. In this video, I interview Jeremy Bagshaw. Jeremy is a South African entrant in the Golden Globe Race, which is another retro event, except the Golden Globe Race is a solo and non-stop race around the world. I met Jeremy on board his boat Oleana in Simonstown just a few days ago to discuss his personal sailing philosophy as well as some technical aspects of his preparation for the race. After the interview, Jeremy graciously gave us a boat tour, which I will publish in about a week's time, so please make sure to subscribe to this channel to get notified when that is released. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I will get back to you. Thank you very much for watching and please enjoy the interview. Hi Jeremy.
Hi there.
Cool, so what can you tell us about your boat?
She's a Swedish classic, designed by Olle Enderlein, a Swedish boat designer, naval architect in the late 1960s. She was built in Sweden in 1973, and so she's quite mature. And I ended up owning her by virtue of the fact that she was entered in the previous Golden Globe Race, the 2018 edition, and she was sailed by a Norwegian entrant, R.A. Vig, and ended up in Cape Town after R.A. was unfortunately dismasted about 400 miles southwest of Cape Town, and he fitted a jury rig and sailed the boat into Cape Town, where it was purchased by a local boat builder who repaired all the damage to her, or most of it, and then I badgered him until he agreed to sell her to me because I wanted the right boat for the Golden Globe Race, and that's how I ended up with her. Cool. So Ara explained, I believe Ara is a yacht surveyor by profession. Yeah. So I read something where he explained or compared his capsize experience to a yacht being dropped off a travel lift that I guess
fell
that's a fair analogy.
onto a concrete road. Yeah. And I assume that's his interpretation of the damage of the boat at that point. So I was wondering what state the boat was in when you got her and what repairs were done maybe by the previous owner. Yeah.
Fortunately, because I'm not a boat builder, all the structural damage had been repaired. What was the main structural damage was all on the starboard side of the boat. The port light around the navigation, the nav table over there, had popped out, and it was the side deck was cracked. This midship's bulkhead here, which is an integral part of the strength of the vessel, had cracked, and parts of it had separated from the hull. But Dave's guys did a fantastic repair job on it. And when I bought the boat and brought her around to Simonstown, I had a very, very capable fiberglass guy come in and do, just for my own peace of mind, do some additional strengthening bits to the structure, bonding the furniture into the boat to give it additional lateral support.
Okay, so you've added some extra fiberglass tabs on the bulkhead and the furniture. Yeah. So that stiffens everything up very well. Yeah. Because if you, for example, tab in the the bunks, then that adds some longitudinal support. So do you think the boat is a lot stiffer now?
I imagine it would be difficult to make them stiffer, but because in the early 70s, boats were built very much more heavily than they are built today. The boat has got a solid core on the hull structure. It's an integral keel, which is part of the boat structure. So it forms an incredibly strong structure just by virtue of its design. So the addition of the extra tabs and things has just served to stiffen up something which maybe over time and age has got a little softer, but I think it's a good...
Well, the race is incredibly demanding on skipper and boat.
Yeah.
So stiffening up everything that you can is always a good idea. For example, Mark Sinclair has these massive hanging knees inside his Lello.
Yeah.
And I believe that's to tie in the cabin top with the coach roof and the side decks and the hull, and so when you capsize, that it translates, or when there's some pressure on the coach roof, for example, it places the pressure on the hull instead.
Yeah.
So it keeps everything together quite nicely. Yeah. So did you feel the need to do anything like that, to add any knees or some additional strength?
It's always a trade-off, isn't it? Weight versus strength and things. The guys who did the repair work they strengthened up the chain plates as well. So that I'm confident that that area which I would have probably put some energy into has been taken care of.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we've got a very strong rig and chain plate element to the boat, and no, I haven't considered anything additional.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a big job when you start doing work like that.
Yes.
You need to rip out a lot of the interior, and it can take a couple of months. So there's also the time consideration.
Yeah.
With the start of the race approaching. So I also want to ask you about the rig. I believe it's a Sparkcraft rig, but the rig was, I believe, designed for the previous owner and not with the Golden Globe race in mind. So
fortunately, living geographically where we do, and the guys from Sparkcraft Cape Town design rigs that are suitable for sailing in our local environment, and what we can have on a normal day of racing in False Bay or in Table Bay is pretty much what you could often get in Southern Ocean conditions. So the rig has been very strongly built. I'm only going to make 2 small changes to it, I think I've sat with the chief designers at Sparkcraft who built the mast, and we've gone through every element of it, and they are confident in its integrity and given me a lot of confidence in it.
Do you know if there's any communication between Sparkcraft in Cape Town and Sparkcraft in France that, for example, built John Luke's rig?
I've got no idea.
That would be interesting to ask them.
Yeah.
If they share some industry secrets.
I'm not sure. It's possible. They all build to. They all share the same vision in terms of the standards that they build to.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And did you make any changes to water tanks or storage solutions or anything like that?
Sure. We're limited in terms of the rules of the races to what we can do. It's not permitted to add additional water. One of the requirements is that you take the boat as it was originally designed, and whatever capacity of water tankage, that's what you can take with you.
So how much water can you take?
I've got 162 litres in my tanks according to the specifications.
You seem quite happy about that.
No, not really. I'd rather take a bit more.
Yeah. Because you're not allowed to take a water maker.
There's no water maker now.
Yeah. So you have to catch rainwater.
Correct, yes. And use water sparingly.
160 litres, 2 litre a day. So you have about 80 days worth of water if you use it really sparingly.
It's about a third of the requirement.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Catching water, certainly I will take empty water containers. I'm not allowed to take, as per the race rules, we're not allowed to take additional water. But there doesn't appear to be a regulation saying you can't take empty water cans with you. So I'll take a couple of those, and the first opportunities I get to fill them, I'll bulk up.
Yeah, that's sneaky. Maybe we should not put that in the video. And what about food? Are you planning on taking like lots of freeze-dried food and stuff for the Southern Ocean, or are you going to make home-cooked meals every night?
I think I haven't really considered the freeze-dried option.
Okay.
I've opted not to install refrigeration in the boat. It didn't have any when I water. And although it is permitted in terms of the race rules, I've decided not to have any. Just purely because it's an additional drain on energy. It's another thing to go wrong. It's something to take my attention off sailing the boat. So I will try and grow sprouts because, they're nice crunchy greens to add to any meal, and basically it'll be canned vegetables a lot of this time. If I manage to catch any fish there, it'll be a nice addition.
There was a commander in the original Golden Globe race with a twin-masted schooner, Junk Rig.
Yes.
I forgot his name. Bill.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He grew sprouts on his boat as well.
Yeah.
And I believe he really found it very nutritious and helpful. So I think that's a very good option because you just keep them in the jar.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a very good option. So you mentioned electricity or power usage on the boat, and I saw some of the other entrants preparing for this edition of the race are really going all out with the preparations on the boats, building redundant systems with redundant batteries and things like that. And are you going the same route, or are you going a bit more minimalistic on the electric side?
As minimalist as possible. I've had a very capable friend of mine, an American, who's a marine electrician, helping me install a system, and through a series of badgering and threatening, I've managed to get him to make it as simple as possible so that even I can understand the system. There's no redundancy except in terms of charging. I've got a hydro generator and solar panels to back up the engine alternator, but I seriously do not intend to run the engine at all, other than once every week or so, just to make sure it still works.
That says a lot about your sailing philosophy, the way that you're planning on using your engine. So how much diesel are you planning on taking?
We have to fill our tanks, the size of tankage that the boat was designed with. My boat has 82-litre tank in tanks, but we're only permitted to use 25 litres of that penalty-free. Thereafter, every litre that we use, we suffer a 2-hour time penalty. Yeah. So I'll probably use my 25 litres and that's it, hopefully. Yeah.
Use that in the doldrums, or
I don't think
if opportunity presents itself.
I don't have a particular strategy for it, but if I do need to charge batteries or anything and I've had failure of my hydro generator, then that would be an option.
So the Watt&C hydro generator that I believe you have is quite a complicated piece of kit. There's a lot of electronics integral into the device. So
it's essentially an alternator driven by a propeller. So when lowered into the water, the propeller turns the alternator, which sends current to a regulator, which disperses it to the batteries. Yeah. It all looks very simple, and it's, if it had to go wrong, I wouldn't know how to fix it. But I've used it before, and even at very, very slow speeds, it generates fantastic amounts of current, and absolutely adequate for powering the systems I've got on board.
And you can lift it out of the water, so the time it spends in the water would actually be quite limited.
Very limited.
So that it prolongs the life of the device. Yeah. So that's really good. How much solar do you have on the boat?
We're obliged to take 160 watts is the minimum solar we can have. If you have a hydro generator, you don't have to have that the solar permanently fitted, but you do have to have it with you in case of failure. But I've got a sort of hybrid thing. I've got 85 watts permanently fitted on the coach roof, and I've got 85 watt panel stored below, which I can just connect in series with. Okay,
that's cool, because I'm just quickly thinking the only thing you really need electricity for on the boat is for navigation lights, radios, and then powering like a YB3 tracker communication device.
The generating capacity is mainly going to be for the organizers' tracking devices and safety devices.
Are you planning on relying a lot on your HP radio SSB HF radio SSB for communicating with other entrants and ships?
Well, hopefully they won't be close enough to talk to by VHF.
Okay.
They'll be too far away behind. But yeah, I'm going to have to sort of wing it with that. I'm not too sure how much discussing there is between entrants.
Oh.
I think when I get out to sea, I suppose that could all change after a couple of months at sea. But I tend to go off grid. I'll do the minimum of communicating.
Okay. I was just thinking about it because I believe in the Indian Ocean, Gregor McCacken, I think that's his name, Ablash, Tommy and Susie and Mark Slats, they were all communicating with each other every couple of hours, just checking in with each other during the storms and stuff. And I believe that's for emotional support and just checking in to see if everyone's still safe and things like that.
I can see the use that it would have, and I can imagine it would be.
Okay. No, that's really cool. And what about navigating? You're restricted to using sextants and paper charts and so on. Are you planning on taking a trailing log?
We have to. Okay. We have to have a trailing log and 3 spare impellers. I've been very lucky to have 2 friends give me the use of their trailing logs. So I've actually got 2 logs and 4 impellers. So
okay, cool.
Yeah,
I also found a trailing log on Country a few years back.
Okay.
Brand new, still in the box with spare impeller or propellers and everything. So amazing piece of technology for the 1960s.
I've had mine calibrated, the primary one that I'll use, and over the GPS measured mile, it was so close that I couldn't see if there was any variance. So.
That's amazing. But a lot of sailors say that you don't really need the trailing log because you can just estimate your speed every couple of hours, and you get quite good with estimating your boat speed after a while. And when you average it out over a 24-hour period, you're going
to be quite close.
Yeah, you can do quite accurate dead reckoning calculations and so on. So, And do you have any other philosophical things you want to say about the race or your approach to preparing the boat? Or
my philosophical approach has been determined to a large extent by budget. So my philosophy of keeping everything simple makes a lot of sense in terms of sailing, but it also makes a lot of sense in terms of budget. I haven't had a massive budget to throw at it, and as a result I've been very careful where I've spent my money, and I've really tried to design simplicity into all the systems that I have. When we get up on deck, you'll see I've moved winches out of the cockpit and to the mast in order to do reefing and halyards at the mast, saving on length of line, saving on friction, saving on time and taking to do things. Just everything I can do to make the boat less complicated. I've taken that as my philosophy. Simplicity and minimalism really is very powerful stuff to do in a race like this. That's pretty much based on those principles. So, and one of the things I really like about the Golden Globe race is that a Corinthian entrant has just as big a chance of winning as a fully sponsored entrant. For example, a PRB or whoever, and they roll with massive budgets. But at the end of the day, anyone can win. So I think where those sort of budgets come in handy is with your sales and things. I mean, it would be magnificent to be able to leave Le Sable with a brand new set of sails and to have had the budget to test sails and decide on the best selection. But then I suppose the alternative is just relying on your experience and the input of friends and colleagues and other sailors in this country, which has been fantastic so far.
Okay, cool. And do you want to tell us a bit about your sail selection, or should we do that on deck?
We can do it either. We're allowed, as part of the race rules, a maximum of 11 sails, which sounds like a lot of sails, but you've got to be quite prudent. And for a boat as small as this, space becomes the other consideration. I mean, it would be fantastic to take a second mainsail along as a precautionary thing because it is the primary driver of the boat. But a mainsail, it's big, it's heavy, it's bulky. I'm going to have to go with one and just be really conservative with it. Then I have a roller furler Genoa on the forestay, which is a slight Yankee cut, so it clears the guardrails and enables me to have a little bit of vision underneath. And also, but the trick now over the next couple of months in my sail trials is to get the size of that right for the balance between fore and aft sails.
To make it life easier for the wind vane.
To make life easier for the wind vane. And a cruising yachty once told me that thing will teach you how to sail, because if you don't get your boat balanced correctly, it just doesn't cooperate. And I mean, a well-balanced boat is a fast boat, so it's something we've learned from racing for years. Then mandatory is a storm jib. On top of that, I've got a staysail, which is fairly small but a very, very useful sail. I've only used it a few times, but I know I'm going to enjoy using that sail. Then I've got a stay on the front of the bowsprit, and from there I can fly. It's a Code Zero sized Yankee sail, which is enormous, and I think it's going to be an absolutely brilliant sail for close to the breeze in lighter airs. I think it's going to be my secret weapon on the way up and down the Atlantic. Downwind sails, I've got an A3 and a reaching asymmetric. I've got 2 running symmetric spinnakers. So I've now got to decide which of the other 2 sails I can make up the quantities with.
Okay. Are you planning on using your storm jib in the Southern Ocean, or will you decide when you get there? I believe some people only use a staysail and prefer to keep the boat moving.
Yes.
Is that your philosophy, or would you generally like to slow the boat down with a drogue?
I'll definitely be keeping the boat moving. Okay. Too many really, really good sailors have proven that is definitely the way to go.
Starting with Vito Dumas, Bernard Matessier.
Yeah.
Half of the Golden Globe race.
Jean-Luc van der Heide. I won't be averse to trailing a warp if I find that things are getting a little bit hairy. Just to give the wind vane a bit of backup.
Trailing a warp is nice because you can determine how much you want to set out.
Correct, yeah.
And you can have a big loop.
Yeah.
And I believe it works quite well. Yeah. I think that's what Robin Knox-Johnston is in favour for.
Yeah.
And then, so Randall Reeves, who did the Figure 8 voyage, he also believes in keeping the boat moving. Yeah. And he mentioned that in his first attempt, he thought he was going to set the storm jib in heavy weather and just leave it there for how long ever and keep the boat moving. And he suffered quite a lot of knockdowns. But then he realized later on that if he sets the staysail with slightly more canvas, it keeps the boat moving faster, moving therefore better relative to the speed of the waves, and then he's actually much safer. So
I think every boat is different, and it's going to be a learning process. This boat is a lot lighter than Randall Reeves' boat, so she's easily driven. I did select this boat very carefully. It was a wonderful coincidence that she happened to be in Cape Town at the time that she was, because although she's the smallest length overall boat and at the very bottom of the entry requirements, she actually has almost the longest waterline length. So being a light, it's also very much probably 1.5 tons lighter than the next light boat in the race. So she's quite easily driven. I think slowing her down might be a challenge in big downwind conditions.
So selecting the lightest boat or selecting a very light boat is exactly the opposite that I believe Kirsten Nashefer did.
Yes.
Where she selected the Cape George 36, which is possibly the heaviest boat in the race.
Her boat is about 4 tons heavier than my boat,
It's a very big difference.
It's huge. Yeah.
So
she's got more sail area as well, though.
Yes, of course. But being in storms in the Southern Ocean with up to 12 meter seas, weight really helps a lot.
Yeah. Look, Kirsten comes from a background of sailing in those conditions. She's got a lot of experience in that area. And she was also advised by an incredibly experienced yachty, Skip Novak, has been a mentor for her. So I have to look at their philosophy with respect. I think they're both very knowledgeable, and certainly Skip is incredibly experienced. And but I think she's chosen a boat for her sailing style and to suit her experience.
That's very important,
As have I.
So the Cape George is a very nice boat.
Yes.
So I'm sure she'll do very well in the race.
Yeah.
And weight is not everything, It's also, like you say, your style.
Yeah.
And the boat needs to fit your personality, otherwise you're not going to do very well. That makes me want to ask you the question, why not select or why not use a Lello 34? Because surely there are a lot of them in South Africa and Cape Town in particular, so it must have been one of your options.
Yeah, it probably was an option. I've sailed Lello 34s before, and they fit very nicely into some of the better parameters for the race. But now that I've sailed this boat, I'm glad that I opted for this one rather than the Lello 34. I would never knock it as a design, and I think as an upwind, as a boat for sailing with wind ahead of the beam, they're fantastic. This boat handles a lot better off the wind than the Lellos that I've sailed.
Okay, so because on paper the Lello 34 is definitely one of the fastest boats.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah. It remains to be proven.
Yeah.
But so I think it's a very good design, and being a South African design, that's I'm glad there's at least one in the race.
Yeah, it doesn't help that it's an Australian sailing it, but good for him. Yeah.
Well, based on his track in the last race, he likes visiting the Cape of Good Hope.
Yes, and East London and Port Elizabeth as well.
Yes. Anyway, so one thing I find interesting about the design of the Lello 34 is just the transom, because the transom lifts a bit out of the water, so it gives you that buoyancy. So I was wondering if you think that makes the boat suitable for surfing big waves.
No.
You don't think so?
No. I'm certainly no naval architect, but from my experience, a transom like that doesn't provide you with the support you need in conditions which could cause the boat to roll laterally.
Okay.
Whereas if you look at a transom like this, it has form stability and off the breeze. And these boats come very much from the sort of the Atkins type philosophy of
the Scandinavian lifeboat
type philosophy.
So it's got a double ender.
Yes, and it's a well proven sea-keeping design.
Cool. Thanks, Jeremy, for the chat.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
If people want to follow you online or follow your journey to the start, where can they find some additional info?
The normal Facebook, Jeremy Bagshaw, and then I've got a website, jeremybagshaw.com.
Okay.
And very simple, very easy to navigate.
Okay, cool. I'm sure people will check it out.
Thank you.
Cool.